Hey, what's up guys? Matt here with Fix Anything Save Money. Today we're going to be showing you how to replace the carburetor on this Husqvarna 525L trimmer. So we're going to be walking you through the process step by step, showing you the tools you're going to need, and we're going to be replacing it with a new carb from a company called Husqvarna. So if you haven't heard of their company, they make carburetors and other small engine parts for a whole bunch of different makes and models of trimmers, leaf blowers, mowers, a whole bunch of different machines they make carburetors and other small engine parts for. So if you aren't familiar with them, I highly suggest you go onto their website, hypastore.com, check them out. They make great replacement parts. Okay, so we're going to dig right into this repair. The tools I like to use for this is just a T25 driver, and then just a small and a larger flathead, and then just a couple pairs of pliers. Okay, so we're gonna first remove this airbox cover, just rotating this counterclockwise, and just loosen this all the way. And then this cover comes right out. And then just take note, underneath this cover is a filter. This has a dual filter on it. So there's one filter, and then here is your second filter. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. Set that off to the side. And what that's going to do is give us access to this air box and the bolts that hold the carburetor in place. So just take note of what that looks like. And this is where we are going to use our T25 driver. And we're just going to loosen these bolts, rotating them counterclockwise. And this little metal bracket is going to want to come out when the bolts come out, so just be aware of that. And now if you have this machine full of fuel, I highly recommend you just dump the fuel out and then just press your priming bulb a couple times to empty any fuel that's in the carburetor, and then just tip it upside down one more time to just get rid of all the fuel, because we're going to be removing the fuel lines, and sometimes the fuel lines can get a little messy. Okay, so now we're just going to take these bolts right out, and we could take it out with this bracket, doesn't really matter. Okay, and then you're going to see some gaskets want to fall, so I like to just leave this together like that. Here's one of our gaskets, and now you can see our carburetor just kind of fell down. But we'll show you all of that in more detail in a second. But what I want to do first is I want to remove this priming bulb. So this bulb and these two green fuel lines, we want to remove this whole thing. And to do that, you can see here, there's two tabs. I'll point to them. There's a black tab here, and then another tab right here. So what we're going to do is pinch those in while we're pushing out, and that's going to release this bulb. So we're just going to press in these and then kind of push. And it is a little hard. You might need to take a screwdriver and kind of loosen them up, or you could just kind of do it like this. Just take them in, press them in, and then just push out. Okay, so we'll show you what that looks like. So now what we could do is take a little flathead and just pry off our fuel lines. And this is just the discharge for the fuel line. So just take a little flathead and pry those off like that. And then take this other one, do the same thing. And once you kind of break the seal, you might even be able to pull it off with your hands. Oh, okay. So there we go. That's what it looks like. That's what it was sitting into, just like that. Okay. So now we have our airbox cover off and our priming bulb off. So now we can go ahead and remove this fuel line right here. This is our actual fuel line. So when you press that priming bulb, what that does is it loads this carburetor with fuel, and then any excess fuel dumps back out into the tank. So now we could remove this fuel line. And now the only thing holding our carburetor in place is our throttle cable. And now this is a little bit different of a design. If I'm being honest, it's not my favorite design, so we can go ahead and just pull this out just so you guys can see a little bit better. You don't need to do that when you're doing it. So what we're gonna do is pull this straight up, and then we're just gonna pull this cable out to release it from there, and then we're just gonna take it all out. So I wanna show that to you close up. So you could see this little piece that spins. There's a hole right there, but if you turn it this way, it's just slotted. There's no hole. So you want it to face like that when you go to put it back together, because this piece right here sits into that, like so. But then there's another part to it as well. So the other part is this piece right in here. When you go to put this cable in, and we'll show you this back in the when we go to assemble it, but this piece slides into here, and then it moves all the way forward this way, and then it kind of locks into place when you pull it up. So to get it in, you just kind of slide it in towards the back of that plastic piece, move it forward like that, and then pull straight up, and you won't be able to pull it out like that. So we're just going to leave that like that for right now. Okay. And so you could see how this all works. So when we go to put it back together, it'll be like that, and then our bulb will go back in like so. Okay, so now what we could do is remove this fuel line, because we're going to be using it for our new one. Okay, and then we'll grab our new one, and we're just going to push our new fuel line back on like so. And now take note, on the back side of this carburetor, there's a gasket here that actually fell down. Let me grab it really quick. Okay, so here's our one gasket, here's our other gasket. So this gasket right here on the back end of our carburetor that goes in just like this, you can see that little pin. You want to put your gasket over that, and then it also fits in, the same pin fits in right there. So let me tip it up for you, because this will make assembling it easier. So hopefully you could see in there, right in there. Maybe I could get a little extra light in there. That pin would fit right into that hole. Okay. So what we could do is go ahead and put that in. And you'll know it when it seats, because it'll kind of just stay. So you can see right there, it's just sitting there. And now we're going to hook our throttle cable back up. Or actually, before we fit that in there like that, let's put our cable in. So we're just going to feed it in like that into that slot, and then we're just going to pull it up so that this piece right here fits into that hole. And then we could go ahead and do that. And what I like to always do is just kind of hold this in and press your trigger and make sure the linkage is working correctly. And you can see it is. So now we could go ahead and hook up our fuel line. And this fuel line right here goes down into the tank, and it attaches to the fuel filter. And and just make sure you push this up flush up against the carburetor. Okay guys, so now we have our throttle cable hooked up. We have our fuel line hooked up. We're gonna test it real quick. Again, just to make sure that it's all installed correctly. And now the next step is to install these fuel lines. So just again, take note, this smaller one that goes straight down into the grommet, into the tank, is gonna go onto the priming bulb, onto this longer one on the priming bulb. And then this one right here that goes up to the carburetor is gonna go onto this shorter nozzle. But first, before we do that, so we know the orientation now, and then that piece right here clicks in to here. So when it's sitting like that, it's gonna go in just like that, okay? So what we're gonna do now is feed these lines into our cover, just like that. And then we could put our priming bulb back on. So here's the one that goes right into the grommet. So that's gonna go onto the longer one. And just make sure you push that up flush against the bulb. Here's our one that's gonna go onto the shorter nozzle that goes up to the carburetor. Okay. And then we could snap this into place. Just like that. So now we have our airbox cover on, and then we're going to take our bolts and we're just going to feed them through here, and just feed them through a little bit. Grab your gasket, put them over your bolts, and then just kind of take your bolt so there's only about a 1/2 inch sticking out of the back, and then put them right into the bolts on your carburetor, or right into the holes on your carburetor. Take your T25, rotate your bolts clockwise, and just kind of tighten them down snugly all around. Again, making sure your throttle cable works. Yep. We're going to tighten these down all the way. Okay, so now we have everything pretty much back together. We're just going to take our air filter, put it in just like that. Then we're going to take our cover, and you can see this is how it goes in. The priming bulb goes through that hole. And just make sure that that is sitting flush all the way around. And then just take your little screw, tighten that down the rest of the way. And yeah guys, that is how you change the carburetor on this Husqvarna 525L trimmer. If you guys have any questions at all, be sure to reach out in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, if this video helped you out, be sure to give it a like. Be sure to check out all of my other tool and DIY videos. Yeah guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.